Go, go. We should be live. Happy Wednesday, everyone. May 24th. Let's go live. Our weekly Twitter space on Twitter and obviously live here on YouTube as well. This is our weekly show from Cake where we discuss markets, we discuss product updates, we go into your questions, we debate what the community is debating. And it's mostly Fabio and myself. Sometimes it's just one of us. Sometimes we add extra guests. Today it's going to be Fabio and myself. Topics are going to be about around reflecting over the past week. There were obviously a lot of debates, discussions we just had before we started the recording here, or started the live. Fabio shared a little bit about a Twitter space from yesterday that he was in. I think this ties really nicely into that Bitcoin debate that's going on. There's a couple of questions you posted for me on Twitter. I want to address those. I also want to address the DOST vaults that were launched, and we had a little bit of some hiccups, mostly with some fund flows and ops. So we're going to address that. And it's going to be a nice, fun episode. Fabio, let's dive in, get going. What are the topics in the community right now, things we need to discuss? Let's start with that first.
Yeah, I brought my green shirt today because I'm very hopeful we will see a big green candle soon. No, I really don't know. It's Julian and me had a brief back and forth with current market sentiment, community sentiment, and I just had a look at the charts. And basically since March 26th, which is 2 months ago, we haven't moved at all. It's sideways consolidation, and you can really see that everybody seems kind of bored. You mentioned a tweet from Crypto. I haven't seen the tweet, but everybody seems to be bored, and we are all of us, of course.
Yeah, no, wait. What was the tweet of Chris? You have to kind of summarize the tweet. Chris's. So Crypto's tweet was, I'm not like citing it correctly, but like the meaning was, man, I've been missing waking up in the morning and getting my dopamine shot with the prices moving. And over the past weeks, really, I wake up and there's nothing. And then, what did you say, Fabio?
Yeah, exactly. All of us in crypto, we are looking for these dopamine hits. We are very used to them. And right now it's just boredom. And people really like to, when everything is boring, they like to make their own entertainment. And for everybody that might have seen it in the aftermath of the Bitcoin conference, which we are going to reflect a bit on, there was some, let's say, beef. We can touch on that at a later part in the space, but maybe we can just hit it off with a small bird's eye view or summary of or our insights or opinions on Bitcoin Miami. Have you been following closely or just
not
with
not
one eye?
Closely? No, not closely. My main things came from people actually sharing it with me. It was quite interesting for me because I felt like there were 3 different kind of feedbacks. But why don't you go first, and then I'll kind of share a bit afterwards.
Yeah, so we had in total on Bitcoin Magazine's YouTube, you could watch 3 days, 3 live stream, 1 industry day, general admission day 1, and general admission day 2. These and each live stream is approximately, I don't know, 8 to 10 hours. So it's like 30 hours in total live stream. I watched all of the live streams last year, and I watched all of them this year. I haven't attended in person, and I have to say this year was I struggled to really get done with everything.
Really?
We had some excitement because it was just not a lot of crazy news. There were a few good talks, like, for example, that 2 presidential candidates were there. Of course, the ordinal debate was very much worth watching. Jack Mallers' announcement that Strike is going global, not in Europe, sadly, but and a few other talks when it comes to mining and a few macro things that were very enjoyable. But all in all, it was very long. And just from an engagement level, so I checked this a few minutes ago. If you compare the live streams from 2022, which was you just need to put it in comparison. When was this Bitcoin conference actually happening? Was slightly before the Luna collapse. So we were still maybe in a bull market, maybe not. It was not really confirmed. People were still hopeful because Luna was buying a lot of Bitcoin. So it was still in a hypey phase. But from an engagement perspective, last year had an order of magnitude more attendees online and 200% more attendees or 100% more attendees live. So live, I think last year was 26,000. This year it was 13,000. Online last year was 350,000, and this time it was about 35,000. So that you can really see the difference from the 2 years. And my personal experience was just, it was very long. Of course, if you're there and attending and seeing this in person, it's easier to go through. You can network in between and so on. But if you're just watching it on a live stream, 30 hours, it was a lot. What were your personal highlights, Julian?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't watch. I want to be honest. I haven't watched any of the live streams. For me, I just seen some of the clips, some highlights. I think on Twitter or YouTube or when they were shared on Slack or on Discord. So this was the main thing. So I think these are the highlights that most people have seen. Like I think those you have mentioned, nothing extraordinary there. But I had, I think I had like 3 different groups of friends who actually attended. I think that first group is what I think is these very early crypto people. Like for me, the representation there is really my co-founder Yuzen, who has been in crypto for so long, and but kind of Bitcoin was that first true love for him in crypto, and that love kind of faded away relatively quickly because there was just no development. And using being a developer, originally really got excited about Bitcoin, but then there was zero progress. And I think him being there, and I've rarely seen Yuzen so hyped up and so pumped and so excited as I see him right now. And I think a lot of that is just because that first true love is kind of igniting massively by him kind of seeing, wow, ordinals, BRC20, there's so much possibilities now to build on Bitcoin. And I think that's that first group. And to be honest, I think that's kind of the only group that was there that's really pumped and really hyped up. And if you talk to them, they're like super excited about all of this, right? So so that was kind of that first group. Obviously, Ordinals conference. I mean, there's a lot of, like you mentioned, a lot of the Udi and Eric kind of gospel kind of talkers, and so I think that's a very interesting kind of group. Now, I would probably see myself also more in that camp. I don't see myself as a crypto OG, so I don't know if I would truly fall in there. But I think if I had gone to the conference, I would probably also see that way more than all the others. The flip side to that, obviously, and I mean, you mentioned as well, is a lot of the hardcore Bitcoiners that see Bitcoin as payments only, Bitcoin as like the dollar replacement, the next global world currency. And I do see a bit, on the one hand, there's some disappointment, there's frustration, there's anger versus that first group. There's maybe also a bit of a disappointment that, not much progress. Sure, some kind of interesting topics. I know that you're not the super hardcore laser or maxi, but I know that. But I do think like you sharing a bit of your sentiment here probably resembles that a bit. I know you're way more open than most like really hardliners. But yeah, that kind of that resemblance, how you said, you struggled a bit going through the streams. Some parts were interesting, some parts were disappointing, and so on. That's kind of that second group. The third group is that typical kind of tourist investor. So for them, it's just like numbers go up. They need the builders, they need the believers. They are just, okay, put $1,000 in, and why am I not getting $5,000 out? And I had friends who were there, and the interesting part of this is these are only locals, right? So either people from the local area or from the US. I don't know anyone that is part of that tourist group that actually flew there. And last year, there were a lot of them. I'm in a lot of masterminds that are very high net worth also. I mean, for them, going there would be easy money-wise, and they just didn't go this year because they didn't care. Like for them, crypto is not a topic. And last year, this was like all of them. Like I think there was like groups with like hundreds of people there, just like these super high net worth people, and they just went there to kind of experience it. And this year they didn't at all. It was not even a conversation. And so it's very, very interesting to kind of see that a bit, right? And I think it resembles, if you then go on social, I think it resembles a lot of this as well. If you look into various communities, you see the builders that are very excited right now. You have more of the kind of podcasters, like I think a lot of the laser eye maxis, right? The hardliner laser eye maxis, a lot of them are podcasters. They're not really, they're more almost like, yeah, you know my opinion there. They're almost like sect leaders, not so much of, I don't know, I don't know, it's a very kind of, to me, very, very difficult. It was also very interesting. One of our team members, he spoke at an event in Italy, and it was also very interesting to listen to him, how he kind of, experienced the sentiment there when, I don't know, when builders spoke or when more the podcasters on stage kind of spoke about Bitcoin. It was very, very different. So I think very similar, how everyone kind of else experiences that. And then you see this in the community right now. I mean, interest, I think, from the average tourist investor is insanely low in crypto right now. It's not a topic. It doesn't come up. For them, these numbers going up, it just stopped for the last couple of weeks. And so, yeah, I don't know. That was my experience from talking to people. I don't know if there's stuff to add from you, something surprising or, yeah.
Yeah, so there's definitely a shift in everything becomes a bit more nuanced, and you can really see a bit of camps forming. So and this is my personal opinion, I think what the OG Bitcoin maxi laser eye cult-like people did for Bitcoin was invaluable, crazy value for the whole of crypto early on, because they had to fight so much negativity, FOD regulation, and just headwinds. Crazy, you know. If you go back to the really early days, Bitcoin was really laughed at, and there were so many attacks from different angles. So what they did early on was very, very important for not only Bitcoin but crypto in general. Right now, it kind of lost a part of its foot to stand on, and it's not that much needed anymore. And it's you can have a debate on if the hardliners really help Bitcoin or the whole of crypto, or if they don't. And that's maybe a bit the culture war that you can see right now in crypto, which, you know, Udi and Eric take one extreme, and you have people like maybe Samsung Mao or Greg Foss, or you name them, maybe taking the other opposite end of that. And it is a legit debate to have. Like usually, even the hardcore Bitcoin maxis, they're free market maximalists as well. So they don't really have an issue with, you know, people using Bitcoin for something that it is maybe not intended for. And right now, sometimes I really feel that this culture war is on a very personal level. Like yesterday, for example, you had Udi and Eric. They came up on stage, and in wizard suits, they brought a lot of people with them. They made some fun. They did some trolling. But they also talked about very crucial technical things on Bitcoin and on Bitcoin culture, which the points that they made were fair points, and they were important points. You can discuss if the way they deliver the message is up. There is some room for improvement, I would say, because they use the same kind of messaging that the other side uses, and kind of, yeah, this resulted in one of the, like Greg Foss, he's a Canadian guy and talks a lot about Bitcoin. He thinks he has a podcast, or at least he speaks a lot on podcasts. He lost, like, he's very famous for rants, and he had this rant where he really went very personal against Udi, and there was some back and forth, and they had a debate 2 hours long yesterday. And just my recommendation, don't watch it, because there is really not a lot of value in that debate. It was very, I don't know, they're just throwing dirt at each other. I would love to recommend this debate, because I listened to the whole 2 hours of it, but I wouldn't recommend listening to it. It was just a very dirty Twitter space where they were on a very personal level. It ended on a nice note where they were kind of, okay, I unblock you and everything's fine, and I say sorry and you say sorry, and something like that. But I guess this is just a symptom or a result of the current boringness in Bitcoin or in crypto in general. So people are just looking for, I don't know, beef because there is nothing else to do. But just to your point, or the things that you mentioned, there is a clear shift out of the bull market now in the midst of the bear market from, I would say, hype, macro politics into building. The building section drastically improved, or there, like just to put it in perspective. So from an NFT standpoint, Bitcoin was never famous for NFTs. You would go to Ethereum, you would go to Solana. But right now, if you just rank NFTs in volume or in interactions, Bitcoin actually ranks number 2 after Ethereum. So they surpassed Solana on interactions on NFT, which is pretty crazy because ordinals are not that old. And yeah, I found this very interesting. People have opinions. You might like them, you might hate them, but it's definitely interesting.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think, no, fully aligned. Was very interesting to hear that also from you. Other topics right now that are being discussed, obviously, debt ceiling. Yeah, I think that is not so much of a crypto topic, more of a macro topic. Personally, I don't know what your thoughts on this are. I think this is going to be way more politicized, especially also in the media, than the actual issue. The media uses this just as bargaining power. The political parties also use that. So I think there's going to be a lot more fear mongering in this. I don't know if you have any other opinions on that than that.
I would say it's a nothing burger because we like every time they make a big deal out of it and then it just gets raised, and after that nobody talks about it anymore. And why should this time be different? So I'm expecting a nothing burger, because if it wouldn't be one, it would actually be pretty. It's just not a viable option, I guess. It's politicized a lot, and people try to leverage it a lot. I would say number one, this one of the number one topics in the macro world, or especially in the US. Maybe besides that, are we pausing with the Fed rate hikes or not? Is also heavily discussed and kind of on the table until we have the meeting. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I would be so surprised. I mean, I saw that the probability of a rate hike went up slightly, but I mean, we're talking about. I mean, I get it, but I mean, this just at the end, the probability of this being it is just so incredibly high. I would be so surprised, like really surprised. I think the market would be surprised. Yeah, I think that's it. What your thoughts?
Yeah, they're done with hiking. I don't expect them to cut or to lower rates anytime soon. They're probably going to hold as long as they can. So we discussed this, I think, during the whole year. So my personal opinion on this is they're going to hold until something breaks. I also cannot foresee a scenario where they're actually going to raise again. That would be pretty crazy. Also because we now have converting rates, so the inflation is actually lower than the Fed fund rate or core inflation.
Yep. Anything else to discuss in the community? I would love to address a bit on the DUSD vaults, and maybe a couple of questions people had for me on Twitter. But I don't know if there's anything else that you feel is up in the community right now. I know it's relatively quiet, which on the one hand is nice. On the other hand, it's also a bit worrisome. Not so much in the Cake community, but like in the entire community. But I don't know if there's anything else we need to address.
We could do Cake specific or product specific right now, and maybe in the end touch a little bit on price.
Sure, let's do that. First and foremost, we launched USD vaults. These vaults are actually high yield vaults for various coins, for DFI, DUSD, Bitcoin, ETH, stable coins. This is a relatively complex issue for us internally because we already have these vaults, but these vaults pay out in native coins. But because these special vaults only pay out in DUSD, in theory, they can get a way higher yield. The problem is it's more of an ops issue, not so much of a tech issue, that you have to rebalance these vaults because you always need DFI from customers, and then you need to have Bitcoin. The Bitcoin have to be in the right kind of vault. The same for DUSD. The same for DFI. So a lot of this rebalancing is extremely difficult. especially because basically we had to start all these parallel. So there was some hiccups in the launch of all that. Some people got a bit frustrated with this, which I really understand. Don't get me wrong. Also, trust me, internally the team is frustrated when these things don't work well. Everyone wants this stuff to work smooth. Yeah, team is on this, is fixing this. Yield then should be like relatively solid on those vaults. So if you want to get cash flow on Bitcoin, ETH, stablecoin, DFI, DUSD, you will see the best return you can get is if you use the special vaults that pay out in DUSD. Here you get the highest yield. Now, be aware, there's a couple of things. Obviously, those DUSD you need to convert into the native coin. At the moment, DeFi chain has a stabilization fee of 30% there to do that. So you lose part of that yield if you convert now. But obviously, some people say, you know what, doesn't make sense to convert now, which what the native coins are doing. So the native coins are converting, and that's why you lose a lot of yield. Let me wait until that issue is fixed, and then at that point, I not only get the upside, but I also don't have to pay that fee. So if you're a bit more of a long-term investor, going for the USD payout, waiting a little bit may actually be a really good solution. So that's just how this works. There was also a question on Twitter: why is the yield here more sustainable than on the Earn product? It's just a completely different product. On Earn, this was a match of liquidity mining, and there was just so much impermanent loss. And if the impermanent loss gets too high in comparison to the actual yield, it just doesn't work out anymore. And so that's why we had to stop that product. On the yield vault, this works via a negative interest rate on DeFi chain. And so it's a completely different service. If we find other products again, we will add them as well. But at the moment, these are just the safest and the best ways to actually generate yield for your Bitcoin, for your ETH, for your stable coins, and so on. So yeah, we're going to fix all that. So that should work really, really smoothly in the coming days. Anything else? Other questions on that, Fabio, that you saw?
No, not really. We some users that have been with us for a very long time. We usually it is entirely possible that we have a few hiccups within the first 24 to 48 hours of launching a new option or a new product, and this is just also how we go about launching things. Julian explained this, I think approximately 3 months or 4 months ago, the skateboard principle, or I don't know how you call it, which is the minimum viable product. And sometimes, I really feel the pain because I spend a lot of time in Telegram and in community chats, and I'm sorry about your inconvenience there. But if you use a product within the first 24 hours, there might be a slight hiccup. It's not that any funds or anything are at risk, but it's just how things are displayed or how things feel might be a slightly or a bit clunky. But I think a larger part of the issues have already been resolved, and everything else is probably addressed by the end of the week. And then it's a perfect functioning product, like all the other products that we're currently offering. And maybe just because I see this question a lot appearing on Telegram, on Twitter, and so on, a lot of community members are they remember we had Lapis, we had Lending, we have Earn, and now these products kind of moved over and evolved into Yield Vault, and they're asking themselves, okay, is there anything else into the direction of Earn, Lapis, Lending planned? And maybe you can answer this question a little bit better than I can. But right now, it's maybe it's important for customers to understand why we are no longer offering lending. So it's actually kind of a nice way in how we, or personally, I think we approach this very professionally. So as a lot of you might remember, last year in 2022, a lot of people that were in the same industry, in the same business as we are, they went bankrupt because they chose the wrong partners or had bad risk management. We kind of made some great choices and had a bit of luck because we selected better partners and had better risk management, and we retired our lending service last summer. Just because we are not willing to have any contagion risk, any exposure to anybody that you never know. Right now, it's still, we don't know if the contagion is fully solved. We still have the whole Genesis and digital currency group and so on out there. There is still some uncertainty, but I don't know, because I don't make strategic decisions. But I think as soon as we know we're going into the next bull cycle, the contagion and everything is done, we might look for a new partner or create a new product, or what are the plans there, Julie?
Yeah, I don't want to, honestly, I mean, at this point, not want to share so much right now. To me, I think it's just always about opportunities, right? Especially crypto. If you're just stagnant, crypto moves way too fast. The things that really made customers money, let's say 2 years ago, is something that doesn't even work right now. And things that are working right now didn't exist 2 years ago. So it always depends a bit on all that, right? So you kind of have to be nimble. And I don't know, for us, I think what made us as a company successful was always to level the playing field for those crypto investors that kind of knew that there were more possibilities out there, but weren't expert enough to use it for themselves. And I think what we did as a company a really good job at is kind of abstracting the complexities away and leaving the simple things still here, so that those crypto investors could get access to staking, could get access to lending, could get access to liquidity mining, could get access to tokenization, and so on. And that was, I think, something that most people never got access to, or it got black boxed by companies not in a transparent manner, and these companies are just not around anymore. So I think that's the key thing we need to really get back to, and that's really something we're going to focus on in abstracting the complexities away, providing people access in a simple manner, transparent manner, providing them with great returns. And so that's going to be a really key focus, to be honest. Yeah. Damien writes, and that's I think a good question here. Do you think the BUSD thesis got invalidated? We currently have so thin order books. The BUSD sell-off continues, but still no positive price movement. Here, I have a really nice graphic, and it's interesting that you just bring this up because I just looked at it. Actually, it's the exact opposite. I think the thesis right now is as strong as ever. Tell you why. Here. So if you look at when this is the market cap of BUSD, so when you actually look at when the sell-offs happened, right? So it was like right at the beginning of 2023, so all of January. That's when we had this massive price pump. Then and you need to understand, right? So the BUSD sell-off happens, the USD need to get cycled back in, and that's when the pump happens. So the pump always happens after the sell-off. This is really important to understand. So it doesn't happen during the sell-off, because during the sell-off, it just changes hands. But when it's fresh dollars coming in, so that happens afterwards. So the money has to cycle back in. So it always happens afterwards, right? And that's what the arbitrage traders then are doing. So the arbitrage traders are doing this. It's not Binance itself, it's the arbitrages. So you have the sell-off. It's dramatic here, right? So it goes from 22 billion all the way down to like 16 billion in like less than a month. So that's 6 billion in less than a month. The market pumps like crazy. That's January. Then here we have all of February, completely flat. Nothing's happening. And then March comes, and then from the second week of March, we're like pumping like insane. We have this massive drop from 16 all the way down to 6, right? So there's like to 8, another 8 billion in like a month, right? So 6 and then 8, both in a month. And since then, right, since mid-March, the sell-off has been super negligible. I mean, you don't know if this is Binance who is selling this off. This could just also be other holders, right? So just 2 billion have been sold off in 2 months. And this does not mean that because they get sold off, maybe they don't come back, right? So to me, actually right now, from this behavior here, it's actually, to me, that thesis is stronger than actually the other way around, because it really fits on when the pump always happens. And so, I don't know. I just think this is, at least my thoughts. Obviously, take of it what you want for yourself. Yeah. This is Edgar's. This is a really like about digital companies and DAOs and so on. I think this is a very off-topic topic here, so I'm not going to address that here on financing with DAOs on blockchains for DeFi and so on. I think it's very off-topic, so I'll leave that to another point to discuss that. Fabio, price. Anything you want to discuss there? Unless there's other topics, let's finish with some price stuff. I don't know. Go away in May. I mean, at the moment, it didn't matter if you went away or not. At the moment, it's like super stagnant. But thoughts?
Yeah, so I think we haven't talked about technical price levels in a while, and right now we are actually at a pretty decisive price level because we are holding slightly above the 200 weekly moving average, which historically, like if you go back to 2019, for example, the bottom formation in 2019 or even earlier, the 200 weekly moving average was usually in the vicinity of the bottom. This time, in this bear market, for the first time ever, Bitcoin sustainably broke underneath the 200 weekly moving average and kind of was there for a multiple month period. We broke to the upside and we're slightly holding above it right now. So I think this is the level to watch, because if you want to bet on go away in May or for a strong summer, if we can hold the 200 weekly moving average, make it support and go higher, then I would probably revisit my opinion of a bearish summer. But if we are breaking the 200 weekly moving average to the downside, then go away in May would very much be on the table. So then we would probably look at a bearish summer. So I'm having two eyes on that price level right now. So just to check, currently it is at 26,280, the moving average, which is just one candle away from either making it support or resistance or breaking up or down.
Edgar here writes, technical analysis for men is like astrology for women. So this is Fabio's astrology.
It's true. It's true. Like I really like a bit of astrology is nice. Come on, guys. Our girls have this whole things with planets and stars and whatnot. A bit of astrology is a nice thing. So I like to keep it fairly simple. You know, just use one or two moving averages and maybe one or two trend lines. That's it. But yeah, it's I don't know. I think a fun exercise. Yeah. And especially in times right now, we don't have anything better to do because it's just boarding price action. We practically just go sideways, and yeah. Other than that, in my opinion, there is not the biggest thing within the Bitcoin community is definitely ordinals, BRC20, all the developments there, and I don't know, Ethereum community. I don't know, regulation kind of came into the background. I have to say my Twitter feed is probably more optimized for following Bitcoin people than Ethereum people. So maybe you have some insights there. And we could finish off with the DeFi chain community after we heard some of your insights on ETH.
No, I don't have. Honestly, I don't have any insight on ETH. I think on ETH, the next thing is going to be scaling solutions that should come in later this year. I think that's the main thing there. And other than that, I don't see much there. Like I think at the moment, Bitcoin is really a key focus because there's just so much development going on there, right? And so so much innovation on there. And so I think that's definitely an interesting one. Regulation, I mean, Coinbase filed again an additional kind of, or filed, but added some part to their lawsuit against the SEC. So, I mean, that's something that came in. Yeah, I don't know. FOMC minutes should be coming out today or just came out. I don't know when. I think at 2 or whatever, or late or at 8. I never know the times. I think there's zero revelation in this. I think, to be honest, the main thing right now that I would probably see as a bit of a dangerous part is the digital currency group thing. I mean, it's something we can cover here. I don't know how much we've covered that in the past kind of shows. They missed, and this is now confirmed, they missed their payment to Genesis. There was a loan due and they missed that payment. I think there's like a 30-day mediation period now. So by the beginning of June at some point, I do think there's the possibility for Genesis to put digital currency group into a involuntary Chapter 11. And from everything that I actually see, this is what all the creditors actually want to have, simply because then DCG would have to really start dissolving or liquidating all of its assets, and most of it, or most of all, obviously Grayscale. And I just think this is super bearish. I think this is like, obviously it's super bullish for whoever like is owed money, but it's going to be very bearish for the rest of the community. So that to me is probably a bit of a kind of thing I would be watching out for. It's not something that's going to happen. Like decisions are going to be made, let's say, in the next 2 to 3 weeks, but like all of the liquidation and so on, I mean, this could go on for months and years. So who knows? Yeah, these are just the main things right now. I don't know. Binance, there was another article on there that they have been mixing company funds and customer funds. I don't know how much of a smoking gun that is or how much fuck that is. Difficult. Really, I mean, it's difficult from the outside. I think everyone sits here and expects that like there's some mostly probably compliance issues at Binance, but I don't think most people sit here and think that Binance is illiquid. I don't think that many people sit here like this. The other question is, did Binance trade against its customers? I think a lot of people just say, yeah, they're easily possible. But obviously, if Binance truly had some issues, that would be dangerous. But yeah, I think that's just how it is. Nothing else to add.
Maybe let me just bring up 1 or 2 points what's currently going on within the DeFi chain community. Please. And then we can call it a day. Yeah. There is a clear shift happening. So with every community, I find it kind of interesting because I experienced this the first time with Ethereum in the run-up in 2017 and then the bear market in 18 and 19, which really condensed the community to its essence. And everybody just, wrote it off. This is that. It's never coming back, and so on. And you can really see a lot of the same with projects that got started in 19 or 2020, 2021. So they experienced their first bull market, and with that also their first bear market. And usually, just if you compare this to other top 10 projects, like, for example, Cardano or XLM or XRP, or you name them, the top 10 out of the 2017 period, usually these projects correct 90% against Bitcoin-ish. Some of them 95, 96%, as, for example, Cardano or XRP did. And then in this phase, the community really compresses to its hardcore believers and to the builders. And this is kind of a decisive period, and you can really see that happening within the DeFi chain community. It's less like where maybe in 2021 it was dominated by degens and yield farmers and people looking for a quick buck. These people have left, the mercenaries have left, and what stayed and what is currently, let's say, left behind or still there are the true builders. And just to highlight this, yesterday, I think 22 hours ago, one of the first white papers for DMC got published, which is called Jellyverse. For everybody that is interested for it within the DeFi ecosystem, DeFi chain ecosystem, definitely check that one out. You can find them on Twitter. Just go on to the DeFi chain Twitter or DeFi chain Telegram. The links are everywhere. And this is like a huge project, like just in size and very ambitious. So I love what's going on there. Lots of building, lots of crazy new ideas, and people are kind of turning a bit more hopeful than they were the last few months. So it's definitely a better sentiment or a better narrative in the community right now than just a few months or a few weeks ago, which is always nice to see.
Cool. Yeah, that's nice. Cool. With that, I think we're calling it a show. Quite nice insights for everyone on the markets, on what's happening on the platform. If you're not a customer yet, head over cakedefi.com. Let us help you take control of your financial destiny and reach those financial goals. Get cash from your crypto. If you're looking to work for a crypto company, we are still hiring. Head over to cakedefi.com/jobs. Most of these jobs are in Singapore, so you have to be either in Singapore or have to be willing to move. And yeah, with that being said, see you all next week. Fabio, it was really nice to have you on, and yeah, work with everyone. So yeah, very much appreciated also for the great work. And remember, click to subscribe, follow, like, whatever, so you don't miss any stuff on the good stuff here. And then we'll see you next time. Thank you so much.